great time to get outside and do some pruning as well. The trees and shrubs are still dormant, and especially with fruit trees. So we want to get out there as soon as possible. As soon as the snow melts and the weather warms up and we enjoy being outside, it's a great time to do some pruning. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you the differences between some different tools that will make your job a lot easier if you have the right kind of tools. So what I've got here is a couple tools you really ought to have if you're out pruning. One is a lopper. Lopper is made for cutting larger branches. This particular lopper, if you see how big the jaws will open up, it will cut about up to 1.5 inch size branch, and it's aluminum handles, and with that large capacity you can really do some nice pruning, get a good clean cut with a large lopper like this. If you have anything that's larger than that, you probably should switch to a saw, and it's nice to have a good fixed blade saw or a folding saw around all the time so you can cut anything that's a little bit larger than that. This would work fine for anything up to about, I'll say 3 inches, maybe 4 inches, and it's a very fast cutting blade, so as you go through you can cut very quickly. This is a tempered tooth, and you can see the color of the tooth is a little bit different. It's because it's been tempered and it's been sharpened on 3 edges, so it actually cuts on both the pull and the push. As the motion goes through the wood, it'll cut in both directions. So one of the fastest cutting saws I've ever used. Definitely need a saw if you're cutting anything larger than, say, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. Almost definitely have to have a saw. But probably your most, if I can get that to close up, there we go. Your most important tool is going to be a hand pruner, especially if you're doing smaller things, because it's easy to get into the branches and do a little bit of pruning. Here's my hand pruner. This is made by Falco. This is one of my favorite hand pruners. It actually has a rotating handle on it, so as you close up your hand, it's a much more natural closing action, and it's just real easy to use and very, very comfortable. You can do a lot of pruning without getting tired. But I've used this pruner a lot, and it does a great job. And I can cut some pretty heavy wood. This is part of a plum tree, and it's a pretty good sized diameter there, but I can cut it with my pruner without any trouble. Pretty easy. Didn't even really have to bear down on it. Just cuts right through it. But there's other types of pruners that are out there that they're really quite common. This one's a Falco type pruner. It's all aluminum handle, and it does a really pretty good job pruning. It's very, very light, easy to use, but I really love my Falco pruner because it just cuts so much cleaner and easier. I just sharpened this, and it's a much more difficult cut. In fact, I can't quite cut it with one hand. I'm going to have to do it with 2 to get it to cut. It made it about halfway through, but it just doesn't cut as easy as that other one. Had to use 2 hands to get it to go through. And if you go with a Corona pruner, one like this is a very common, very good pruner, inexpensive, but when you get into some harder woods, very difficult to cut. In fact, I don't think I'm going to be able to even get as far as I could with the Falco. That's going to be a 2-hand job also. So if you saw how easy it was for me to do it with my Falco pruner, you can see how much easier your job's going to be, because it just makes life so much easier when you can cut that easy without any trouble. That's the difference in a really good hand pruner and a lesser quality hand pruner. Now, a few pruning basics. What you're going to look for is, in a tree, you're going to look for anything that's dead, damaged, diseased, or broken. You're going to take that out first. Anything that's crossing over or rubbing up against another branch, we're going to take that out as well too. Anything that's curving back into the center of the tree, that needs to come out as well. And those are kind of your most important things to look for. And water sprouts. They shoot straight up in the air, and those water sprouts, especially on apples and basically all your fruit trees, they are going to shoot straight up, almost a different color growth on it, and those need to come out completely as well too. So those are the 4 things you need to really watch for to begin with. Then we're going to use the rest of our pruning to direct the tree in going the direction that we want it to go. So I've got a branch here that I trimmed off earlier. Out here on the tip is a terminal bud, and that terminal bud is going to just keep growing out in that same direction. So if you want this branch on this tree to keep growing out, you leave the terminal bud and it will continue to grow that way. But there's also lateral buds all the way along the branch. So you can see you know, against my hand, there's lateral buds like right here and right here and right here, going in different directions. How we make our pruning cut is going to determine which one of those and which way the tree is going to grow when we make a cut. So if we decide that if the branch is out here and we want the tree to grow in this direction, we're going to prune back to that bud. Now the best place to prune is about 1/4 of an inch above the bud on a 45-degree angle, with the angle pointing in the same direction as the bud. And then as you trim that terminal bud off and all these other buds along here, it's going to force the growth to go out that bud, and it's going to change the direction of the tree. So if we use our pruner here, and that's the bud that I've selected, we want to prune right there, like I said, 1/4 of an inch above the bud on a 45-degree angle with the angle pointing in the same direction as the bud, and prune it off just right there. So you can see that angle's pointing in the same direction as that bud, and the growth's going to come out this way. I prune just a little bit above that bud, and this is going to heal over a lot better because I prune it on the 45-degree angle, and you're going to get nice growth out of that branch. So that's your pruning basics. You know, if you're pruning back to a main branch, you still want to leave a 1/4 of an inch collar, but you're not going to leave an angle, a 45-degree angle on it. So if we're pruning back to a major branch, like say this was attached to a tree right here, and if we were going to prune it right back to the branch, which is my arm, we'd prune it flush with the branch that we're going to leave, but you're still going to leave that 1/4 of an inch collar as you take that off. So a lot of different tricks to pruning. There's so much that I can't cover it all in one little segment, but really does make a difference to have the right kind of tools. And we carry Falco and we carry Corona, and a lot of other really good high quality tools that will make your job a lot easier.